My name is John Millar. I'm a Zhineng Qigong practitioner and teacher. For those who are familiar with Zhineng Qigong, it will need no introduction at all. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zhineng Qigong, Zhineng is a form of Qigong that is well known for its work around healing in a center called the Medicineless Hospital, or the Huaijia Center in China. This center had just short of 500,000 people go through it with significant illness. It's had a great reputation around its work with cancer and its work with Parkinson's. So the work that I want to do today is just taking some of the very simple ideas and physical movements that exist within that and exploring them with you. And what we're really looking at here is getting the whole body moving, starting to get the brain involved in the idea that the body can move, and creating new neural pathways, creating new potential for movement. So there's a couple of things that I think are interesting here. One of the pieces that tends to happen within practices such as Qigong is that we tend to get asymmetric movement. So for example, we will allow one hand to move first, and then we'll allow the other hand to move. Now, it's great in some circumstances, but when we're working with people who have got different levels of movement on either side of the body, which can happen obviously within the Parkinson's diagnosis, when the hand up here, if the good hand is sort of going, yeah, this hand's really good, this arm is really working well, and then this hand comes in, you're going, but this one's not quite got the same level of movement. What the practice can do is it can reinforce the fact that you have asymmetry, that you have a lack of movement on one side of the body. So what I'd like to do is do a completely balanced practice today, so that everything we do involves both sides simultaneously. And I want to take you through a number of exercises that will help with specific areas that can be problematic when we're working with Parkinson's diagnosis. So I would encourage you to stick with this and do this a number of times, because each time you work through, different things will happen. And what we're going to do is we're going to work from the top of the body and gradually work down with a number of simple techniques. And I hope you enjoy. So, should we start? The first practice that I'd like to do is a practice called Crane's Neck. Crane's Neck is a practice that gets drawn from the level 2, something called body-mind form within Zhineng Qigong. And I don't want you to try to do this too accurately, but I want you to explore it. So I'm hoping that if I turn sideways, you can get a good view of this. One of the things that happens is that this whole area of the body, back of the neck, the shoulders, can start to tense up and not move particularly well. And so this particular practice is addressing the neck. So what we do is we draw the chin all the way down onto the chest, and then it draws up close to the body and continues its journey all the way up, out, and down. Okay, so I'm aware I have a mic on, so I'm just going to move the mic so that I don't make strange scratchy noises with my beard. So it draws up close to the body, up, out, and down. Close. Now, as you're doing this movement, we should really be trying to just limit the movement into the space in the neck. Okay, if you want to do this accurately, we can actually put hands on the waist, so that when we draw up, this just creates a slightly different set of openings, engages the shoulders in a slightly different way. And you'll probably be hearing all kinds of cracks and weird noises coming from the neck. This is normal. Just allow yourself to move in whatever way is possible for you to move today. So it's not about getting it right, it's just about creating the space. Okay, a few more times round in this direction. And then allow the neck to come into the center. Just soften it off a little bit, see how it feels. A little bit further. So then we can do this, what's called reverse crane's neck. So again, you can put the hands on the lowest rib if you would like, or you can leave the hands by the side. I'll leave the hands here. So to reverse the movement, the chin draws all the way in towards the throat. It pushes down, out, and up. And it continues all the way up until it gets to the highest point that it can. Then Ba Hui, the crown, is lifted. And as the crown lifts, naturally, the chin draws in. So we're drawing circles with the chin in the other direction. A few more times. So the movement is really just focusing into the neck, just mobilizing the vertebra in the neck and allowing them to move freely. Okay, now coming back into the center. A couple of things can happen in this exercise because it's not an area of the body that people are that comfortable in moving quite often. So if you're feeling at all dizzy or heady, you can just have this idea of draw down, and draw down. If you found that the movement has been a bit much for you as you've been doing it, or if you want to go and practice it and you find that it is a bit much, always sit down and you can always draw back down. Okay. So the next thing that I'd like to look at, if you would just excuse me while I make a small adjustment on the camera. The next thing that I would like to look at is another neck movement, and this movement is called dragon's neck. Okay, so dragon's neck is, the dragon in Chinese culture is very serpentine. It's got this long serpentine body and itty bitty little legs. So a lot of the sort of the snake work in the modern forms of Qigong relates to the dragon. But what the dragon's head is about, it's about creating a sideways movement in the head. Now there's all kinds of detail that exists within this. So I don't want to get too caught in the detail. I just want to create that opening. So the idea is that if you have two little horns, one above each ear, okay, so the left horn moves out, then the right horn moves out. Left horn out and right horn out. So it's like a figure of 8. And again, we can do this with the hands on the side or not. And as this figure of 8 happens, one of the details that you want to just keep an eye on is keeping the chin fairly stationary. Okay, so this shouldn't move too much, but what you're doing is you're creating an opening in the sides of the neck. And again, you'll probably find there's all kinds of weird squelchy and cracky noises going on. It's just working into areas that you haven't moved particularly freely for a while. It's just creating space. And the more space we create, the more that part of the body opens, the more things change. So again, you can play with that for as long as you want. If you feel, because these are upper body exercises and they can actually bring on rising Qi, if you feel it's useful, you can draw back down. If you have this experience, the chances are it'll only be that strong once or twice. And then you will have created enough release that it doesn't happen again. But always having the option of just drawing down is useful. So the neck exercises, to recap: crane's neck forwards, Crane's neck backwards. Dragon's head, which again, we can use any adaptation of that, opening up the space in the neck. So this really helps the neck area to open. Now the next one I'd like to use is something called turning the thumbs. Turning the thumbs isn't a traditional Zhineng exercise, but it's a really useful technique. So with turning the thumbs, if we push both thumbs forwards, then we turn both thumbs back. The focus is always on the thumbs. So they push forwards and they push back. But what I'd like you to do is gradually, when they push forwards, allow that movement to carry on. And then as they push back, allow the movement to carry on. Now, what I want to do is see how far you can move your thumbs round. And what I want you to do is encourage you to cheat slightly. Okay, cheating is your friend here. So if you can keep the thumbs turning all the way around, but in order to do that, you have to lift the front of the body slightly. And if you can keep them turning all the way back, but in order to do that, you have to bow the body back down slightly, no problem. This movement, just turning the thumbs, is a very powerful way of just allowing a little bit of space to come into the shoulders. It helps to release the shoulders. And you can take this to quite an extreme, so you can actually allow the hands to rise up and the thumbs to turn back. This opens the whole at the front of the body. And then if you turn them the other way, you can use this as a forward bend and allow the front of the body to draw down, the back of the body to open. So here we open the front, and here we open the back. So we're now working on the whole of the spine. The whole of the spine working as one. And it's not about how far you can move. It's not about being able to touch your toes or doing anything like that. It's just about opening up the space. So now we've opened the neck in the first bit. We're opening the space between the shoulders when we first start this, and then we can work our way down through the whole of the spine. So the lumbar spine can start to get involved, so that as you bend forwards, you can open up the lower back. And then the front of the body can open, and we can release the intercostal muscles between the ribs. We can just allow this to be a whole body movement, a whole body stretch. And when I say stretch, I should really say open, because in Qigong we don't actually stretch. We only ever create space. We only ever open. Okay, now while we're on the subject of the forward bends, these roll downs and roll ups, there's a detail that we can bring in if you want to really explore this and go more deeply into it. When you roll the body down and you get down to the very lowest point, now my movement today isn't great. We try to keep the legs straight, and here what we do is we imagine the tailbone is lifting up, and this will typically allow the body to sink a little bit further. Then we allow the tailbone to sink down, and as the tailbone sinks down, it creates a movement up the rest of the spine. So the whole body unfurls upwards, and then the top of the head moves out and down. So the whole of the spine opens, keeping legs straight, all the way down till the tip of the tailbone. Just an idea of the tailbone lifting up. Some of you have probably got your hands flat on the floor by now. I'm not going there. And then sink the tailbone down and unfurl the front of the body. And allow that to rise up. A couple more times. All the way down. Tailbone is lifted. Sink the tailbone all the way up. Once more. and then all the way up. When you get to the top, you can just pause at the top, but allow the whole of the body just to move freely. And this move freely is like a wave of movement that travels through the body. So the front opens and the back opens. And then in the same way as we did at the end of the crane's neck and the dragon's head, we can draw Qi down. This drawing Qi down through the entire body just helps to settle everything. All the way down. We can imagine going down through the legs as well. And then lift Qi up. Draw Qi down. It's like a Qi shower. Okay, and a slight detail here. Lift Qi up. When you draw Qi down as if you're drawn down through the whole of the body, down to the bottom of the pelvic area. And then whether you go down to the coccyx or the base of the pelvis, open out to the hips before you go down through the legs. Couple more times. And this can just flow through however you want. Okay, so the next time you draw down as far as lower dantian and pause at lower dantian. Let it go. Okay. So, we've worked on the neck, we've worked on the spine, we've worked all the way down the spine. What I'd like to do is do a little bit more work around the lumbar and the pelvic area. Again, this is an area that doesn't get an awful lot of attention in quite a lot of the stuff that we do. And it's really important to actually have this part of the body moving. If you can actually have a decent amount of movement here, you'll also be softening the knees. And as far as preventing yourself from falling and doing these types of things, if you've got a bit of flexibility and a bit of movement here, it will really help. Right, so this is an exercise I would suggest not doing in public. I got very into this exercise a number of years ago when the children were still quite small. So every morning through the summer, I'd go out into the garden. And basically the exercise is turning the hips. But on this particular morning, the children were picked up in a double-decker bus for the first time ever. And all the kids were on the top and they all looked across into the garden. And there is Jack and Sky's dad doing this in the garden. It wasn't pretty. So be careful where you do it is my suggestion. So the movement itself, we have a slightly wider stance and we sink into the stance. We soften the knees and bring the hands up onto the lowest rib. Now, to do the movement well, what we're looking at is isolating the movement between the hands and the knees. So if what you end up doing is this, you're not actually moving the hip area that much at all, or the lower back at all. But if you do this, you've created a degree of isolation in this part of the body. And if you put the hands on the spine, you can feel the way it all moves. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for mobilizing the lower spine. So hands on the hips. Okay, the first thing we do is we shift the hips left, forwards, across the front to the right, and back, and across the back to the left. Okay, so when you first start doing it, what we're looking for is circles, but you may find that you've got squares or rectangles or triangles or something else going on. Doesn't matter. Just allow this to be quite a big movement to start with. And we're looking at just creating that isolation. So if you want an image to help this, you can imagine just drawing circles with the tailbone on the floor. If you've got a bit more movement, you can imagine that the tailbone is actually circling all the way up. So when it's here, it's as if the tail is circled back into here. When it's at the front, it circles back in. Here, circles back in. So we can work with the idea of the tailbone as being the driver for this. So whether it's circles on the floor or whether you want to do a bigger movement, doesn't matter. So first in one direction, and then what we can do is we can change the direction. Now, if you take this away outside of this session, I'd suggest that it's quite good to do this sort of 50 times in each direction. It's an incredibly good practice for mobilizing the hips. And you can really feel, if you put the hands onto the parts of the body that you want to work with, you want to notice, you can really feel the movement in the hips. The quad, the groin here, this works well. Round the back onto the tailbone, the lower spine, you can feel the way all of this part of the body moves. From a pure Qigong perspective, we also talk about returning Qi into lower dantian. So because we've put the awareness down to this part of the body, what we're doing is we're bringing the awareness here. And this is a very powerful place to come back to. Okay, a few more times. And then recenter. Okay, so neck, spine, lower spine, hips. We've worked all the way down to the knees. We can do exercise on the feet as well. I haven't really got time in this video, but a very good way to do it is if you can hold on to something. So I've got a yurt that I can hang on to and lift a foot up and you can circle the feet. This is a very good practice. You can also lift and point toes, circle feet. These types of practices, very good at getting the mobilization into the legs. If you are able to do it without holding on, then again, it's just lift the knee up quite high and just be able to create those circles. But let's say, not got time to really explore that one here. What I'd like to do is finish this session with something that's more of an all-body practice, so everything is now moving. So not only have we mobilized the neck, the spine, the hips, and the knees, we now look at how does this all work together. And again, a very symmetrical practice. And this practice is taken from something called Tai Chi ball. So what we do is we reach out and bring the hands back in front, palms facing up. This is called bringing the mind home. Bringing the mind home. So as the hands expand out, doesn't matter whether they face up or down, and as they draw back, just make sure the palms are facing up. A couple more times, bring the mind home. Last one. And then spiral the hands up, all the way up, palms facing up until they pause at the very top. Connecting up into blue sky. The front of the body is very much open here. The thumbs draw forwards and the hands spiral out to the sides, palms stay facing up. This opens the shoulders. We have to open the shoulders in order to achieve this. And you probably find the body bows down slightly, so it opens the back. Continuing that theme of opening the back, the thumbs draw down under the armpits, we squat down slightly, so here the whole of the spine has got an opportunity to open, gather back inside, and then rise up the front. Expand out, and draw back. Now, it doesn't matter what size this movement is. It could be a very big movement, it could be a very small movement. Just make sure that it's symmetrical, or as symmetrical as you are comfortable with, and the whole body is involved. So all of those spaces that we've worked with, the neck, the spine, the hips, the knees, everything is getting involved. Expanding up into blue sky, drawing blue sky back inside. A few more times. Up, out, and back. Up, out, and back. Okay, the next time it gets up to the top, we're going to pause. And then we're going to reverse the movement. So we're going to draw down the front of the body or draw down inside. And at the bottom, push little fingers back so they spiral out and up and draw Qi down. Okay, so if you're being accurate about it, we squat down slightly, we push little fingers back, palms stay facing upwards, draw Qi down. But if we are interested more in just getting the effect of it as opposed to the physical accuracy, draw down. Same as we did on the other sections. This is just a way of getting up to the top and draw down. Okay. One more time in this posture. And then pause at the top and draw the feet closer together. And then we try 3 times with the feet closer together. Draw down, spiral out and up, draw down. Spiral out and up. One last time, draw down. Spiral out and up. Okay, and then just to finish off, connect up and draw Qi down into upper dantian, into the space in the head, bright and full of blue sky. Qi is abundant. Draw down into the center of the chest, into middle dantian. Here, all functions are normal. Everything is healthy. Qi is abundant. Finally, draw down into lower dantian, the engine room, our center. Qi is abundant. Release the hands to the side, and to close the practice, always reach out in front, gather Qi, draw Qi back, palm, undo Qi. Mind resting in lower dantian. Release the hands to the sides. We always finish with Zhineng practice with Hao La. Hao is good and La is already. So raising the palms. Hao La. Hao La. Xie xie. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.